Hey, everybody. So I am here, as you can see, all alone today. Ryan, our fearless leader, is out doing dad things. He has traveled from West Vancouver, British Columbia, down to Portland, Oregon, back up to West Vancouver. Now has driven out to Fernie, British Columbia. So I don't know. I don't know how long that's been, but he's probably been in the car 30 plus hours in the last handful of days. And it's all because of the dad life. He's doing such amazing things for his daughter, for his son, and I'm just really really proud of him. So if he ever gets to listen to this, Ryan, I want you to know how proud of you, of all the things that you're doing. And it's sometimes easy to look at the things that other dads are doing, that other people are doing, and think to ourselves like, wow, I'm really falling short of that. Or, man, I don't envy that position. I'm doing way better than them. And we play this comparison game, and we play this game where we feel like we're not doing enough, or we are just coasting and things aren't going the way that they should, or we think that they should, or there's things that come up that we're not happy with, things that are out of our control, things that are inside of our control. And today I just want to share, just from the heart of, this is not going to be some lesson on being the best dad. It's not going to be a lesson on even being a great dad. I want to share with you the reality of just being a dad. And that sometimes the things that we need to learn the most, or that we want to teach the most to our kids, are ultimately the things that we need to learn the most. And one book that I keep coming back to, I'm sure I've mentioned it a whole bunch on here, but I think is such a great little book, short book. It takes you a year to read it, but it's short in that it only takes a couple minutes a day. And that's The Daily Dad by Ryan Holiday. His series on Stoicism have been complete game changers for so many people he's really introduced the concept, the principles, the practical application of Stoicism to modern life. And he's a dad, and he's an entrepreneur, he's an author, and I love so much of what he's done, and I really appreciate his writing and his ability to kind of cut through the noise and really speak to what is true. And so one thing that I read, I'm going to actually read you, it's literally a page, not even a page long, but one of the passages from The Daily Dad. So if you don't know what The Daily Dad is, it's so every single day, January 1st to December 31st, there is one, essentially a page and a half every day, where it's just a lesson for the day, just a story and a lesson and an application on being a great dad, on being a dad, being a better dad today than you were yesterday. And so on this particular day, the topic is, or the subject is, you got to live up to it. And let me read you this here, and then I'll discuss it for a few minutes. There are some very basic parenting laws that we all know, and we all try to get our kids to follow. They involve hard work, sportsmanship, effort, manners, respect, and boundaries. You know the ones. They're the basic rules that every parent knows. There are a million others that we believe are essential to growing up. Some have become cliches, others are simple truisms. But they got that way because we have found virtue in repeating them day after day, child after child, generation after generation. What we think less about is whether we're actually following those rules ourselves, whether we are abiding by the laws we seek to enforce. As the billionaire Charles Koch once explained of the main lesson he learned from his fathers, of his father's very hands-on parenting. You can't lecture your kids on anything you don't live up to. You can't tell your kids to respect others and then talk rudely to a customer service representative on the phone. You can't tell them that it's important to find and follow their passion, and meanwhile work their entire childhood at a job that pays well but makes you miserable. You can't tell them that family is important if your actions don't show it. You can't lecture your kids. You have to live up to the lessons you want them to learn. And that really struck a chord with me, and I think that really is at the root of what this whole Dad Talks, this whole movement that Ryan has started, that I have embarked on myself with him, is that it's not enough to tell our kids things and expect that they're going to live up to those things. It's not enough to just be in our own little bubble. It's us sharing our lives with our kids. It's us being the people that we hope that they can be. It's being the dad that we always hoped, that we always dreamed that we had, whether or not we had them or not. And it's so easy when we're in our element, when things are going right, when things are just flowing, when we feel like we're in flow, when we feel like we've got momentum. It's very easy to take our kids along and to show them who we are, to show them what's possible, to show them what they can do, to show them what life is really all about. But what happens when we don't act in accordance to the ideals and the principles that we want our kids to espouse? What happens when doubt creeps into our mind? What happens when we're just riddled with fear, with anxiety, with guilt, with shame, with embarrassment? Like, how do we lead as dads? How do we lead as fathers when in a moment, all we need is our own fathers? Like, what do we do in a moment where we've really fucked up? What do we do when we feel like we're the kids? What do we do when we don't feel like we can do it? What do we do when, we've just lost it and we just feel like the biggest bag of dirt? Like we've just failed our kids. Like we've just failed our wives. We've just failed our spouses. And I had a moment like that not too long ago with my daughter, who's 8, who is learning to read, who in some moments absolutely loves it. In some moments she doesn't. She's, some of her friends are, quote, further ahead along on their journey. And so they're reading a lot better. And she doesn't feel confident in it, so she shies away from it. And I'm coaching her on doing it better, on meeting the moment, on practicing, on getting the reps in, on visualizing herself reading, on visualizing herself enjoying it. And out of any of the skills that they teach in school, out of any of the skills that any of us learn, other than compassion and kindness and grit and strength, so those are the basic skills of life. I think one of the most important ones of this modern life is reading. I mean, a book, I can't tell you how many books have changed my life. Just this book right here, just these 2 pages. just opened up something for me that in one moment, when I read, you can't lecture your kids. You have to live up to the lessons you want them to learn. And in the moment that I read that for the first time, I felt like I wasn't living up to the lessons that I want them to learn. So it's like, how could I expect my kids to learn this? How could I expect them to embody this if I'm not doing it myself? And in that moment, I sent myself into a spiral of fear and loathing, of guilt and shame. Like I was just the worst dad in the whole world. Like I wasn't worthy of having these kids. Like I wasn't worthy of having the life that I have, the life that I strive for. All I saw was all the mistakes that I made. All I saw was the times that I'd not met the moment, that I had let the opportunity slip. I became confused as to what this whole thing was. And in that moment, for many of us, we'll just react in the most childlike manner. Either we just shut down, or we have big outbursts. And for me, those moments is when I become the most quiet. And in the best moments when I'm like that is when I'm being introspective, when I'm analyzing, when I'm feeling within myself. And in the worst times is when I'm trying to disconnect from everything because it feels too painful. It feels too raw. It feels too vulnerable to be there. And we are living today, so we're 2025, and we're living in a time where generationally, even though it's been a handful of decades away, it's not even my lifetime, but we live in a world where like my grandfather, his father, who passed it then down to my father, and my father to me, that there's this sense that men are supposed to be a certain way and only a certain way, that we are, the stoic kings of our lives, that we are meant to just be even keel, that we are meant to just show up, to do our work, to get out there and fight, to suck it up, to not complain, to not emote. And I get it. There are times when my kids are having a meltdown, when my wife is having a meltdown, when everybody around me seems to be falling, when everybody around and everything around me seems to be crumbling, that those are the times when I need to stand up and be the sense of calm, to be the sense of power. But what happens when I don't have a sense within myself that I can be the one to fall apart, that I can be the one to be vulnerable, that I can be the one to just be real and raw and just to let it all, to feel it all. And I recognize for myself that one of the things that I have done very poorly on over the last maybe a couple decades is that I've become disconnected from really how I really feel. And so I don't feel enough. I put on a brave face too much. And I remember when we were at the park and my kid fell off of this little play structure, this little climbing structure. And she fell off. She probably fell from about 4 feet, kind of flat on her back. And the first thing she did was look over at me. I was standing 5 feet away when it happened. She just looked over at me. And I remember that moment. It's a split-second decision. Like, I'm just going to just appear calm. Like, I wasn't sure if she was okay. Like, I don't know. Like, could have winded herself. She could have dislocated something. But I just chose to stay very calm. I said, oh, and I kind of laughed a little bit. And then I could tell, like, she was looking for me, like, okay, what's going on here? Am I okay? Like, she was looking to me for reassurance. And in that moment, I was able to give it to her. And she just got up and she was fine. And how many times have we seen that when we see a kid fall, or, they have like this delayed reaction where they're not exactly sure what to feel. They're not exactly sure what they're feeling. So they look to us. Or if they don't get the attention, if they don't get the acknowledgement, then all of a sudden they have a big meltdown. Because what they're really looking for is our care and our attention and our love. But then what happens in those moments, not necessarily when there's a physical thing that happens, but what happens when I'm in a moment where I'm doubting myself? What happens when I'm in a moment where I'm feeling a crisis of conscience within myself, and then my kids come up to me and need something, or they're going through something themselves? Not everybody can be having a meltdown at the same time in the household. And this particular episode is not going to be about figuring out, telling you what to do in those moments. But I just want to acknowledge you as a dad, that I get it. I want to tell you that I see you, man. I see you. When shit is hitting the fan, when life is not working out the way you wanted it to, when your kids are not happy, when your spouse is not happy, when you're not happy, I get it. I get it. And I see you when you're trying to pull it all together for everybody else. I see you when you go to bed at night and you're wondering what the fuck is going on. I see you when you wake up in the morning and wonder if you can pull it together enough to get through the day. I see you when you worry about whether your kids are developing the strength, the resilience, the grit, the compassion, the kindness that you want them to have, that sometimes ultimately you want to have. I see you when you're talking to your kids about them living up to their potential. But in the back of your mind, what you're really saying is that you're speaking to yourself. I see you when you're doing your best. I see you when you fuck up and you feel it. I see you, man. I see you. We're all in this together. And none of us have it all figured out. That none of us are living up to our potential, are living up to the lessons that we want them to learn. Not every day. But I think it's important for me, it's important for you, it's important for us to, number one, recognize that just holding on to that ideal, holding on to that commitment that we make to our kids, that we make to our spouses, that we make to ourselves ultimately, that we're going to be the best that we can be in every moment. And that doesn't mean that we're going to win every moment. Honestly, lately I've felt like I've lost most moments. That there wasn't a lot of sunshine in my days. Yet there's been a lot of doubt, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of questioning whether or not I'm on the right path, whether or not I'm doing the right thing. And yesterday I had a moment where I just loved my kids. So I just felt the love for them so much. Like my heart ached as I thought about my kids and I thought about them away from me, they were both in school and I was at my office, and I'm like, oh, I just felt so much love for them. I just wanted to hold them close. I just wanted to be with them in that moment. And it gave me solace. It gave me a moment to recognize that the thing that I cherish the most, my kids, my family, that just holding that in my heart sometimes is enough. That it will help guide me to where I need to be. It will help guide me back to myself, back to the path that I know that I'm capable of. And that ultimately, that the generations that came before me didn't do their best just so that I can sit on my ass. That I get to carry this forward. That I want my kids to grow up. I have 2 daughters. That I want my daughters to meet and to marry men that I respect. And if that's going to happen, I've got to be that example. And so as much as sometimes I do the best that I can just so that I can feel good within myself, and those times when I can't, the leverage that I have to do better is for my kids. And this whole thing is just a clusterfuck of things that happen. Like, life is just this weird thing. We've got this social media thing. We've got geopolitical things that are happening all over the world. We've got war. We've got famine. We've got just an immeasurable amount of sadness and just bullshit that happens. And in that, we also have moments of peace and calm and joy and love. And so through all of it, just know that I see you. I'm with you. That as much as you may be here learning from us, learning with us, that I learn from you. That there's so many things that I look up to you about, that I wish I was, that I wish I emulated, and that none of us have this whole thing figured out, that none of us are where we want to be, but we strive to be better, that together we can do this. Together we can carry ourselves forward. Together we can lift ourselves up and lift each other up. And just really be the dads that we're proud of. That if we continue to do the work relentlessly, day in and day out, knowing that not every day is going to be great, knowing that not every day is going to be perfect, that at some point there'll be more days that we're proud of than more days that we feel shame about. That there'll be more days where we'll feel good and less days where we feel guilt. Where there's more days that we've won, that we can put our heads down on the pillow at night and recognize that we won that day. And even that when we know that we didn't win that day, or we don't feel like we won that day, that know that we can win tomorrow. So may you go forward in this day. May you go forward in this journey with me, with Ryan, with all of us, arm in arm. That together, that we are stronger. Together we are better. Now, I'm here with you, and I know that you're here with me. So let's do this. Okay. We'll see you next time.